Cincinnati at Oklahoma State. J.J. Joe, Baylor Radio Color Analyst, former Baylor quarterback, joins us on 365 Sports. J.J., when did you notice that they had not run a single running play in that game until the fourth series against Cincinnati on Saturday?
Well, Smoke, my job is to analyze, and I recognized pretty quick that we hadn't gotten Reese or Dawson or Dominique the ball pretty early. So, I remember when they handed it off for the first time, and I'm guessing here a little bit. I think it was one to Reese, but it may have been Dominique. But I knew pretty early. I think maybe we got to the second quarter before we handed it off to a running back. So I recognized pretty early that our approach is going to be a little different today.
JJ, what did you think of the changes they made along the offensive line?
I liked them. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know much about Colton. I'll be honest. Price, I just kind of heard that he's kind of a nasty guy, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way for a lineman. That he likes to play up to the edge. I think that's very similar. I heard that about Clark. That Clark kind of likes to play towards the edge, of aggressiveness. But I did like it. I thought, even though we didn't run it early to really test them, we did late. I thought the middle seemed a little sounder. And I'll tell you something, guys. There's a few times in the game where, as a quarterback, I actually think I said this on the air to Jay Moe. I said I think there was some pushing going on between Barrington and Price, or one of them, and the defensive tackles. And I said I like that. And what that meant to me is that when you have linemen that are a little bit edgy, it can get you in trouble with some penalties. But I think this group of guys needs a few players that like to play right up to that edge and sometimes a step over it. So I like the changes.
So, JJ, they made those changes. They also very clearly, we're not trying to establish the run early on, knowing that was a strength of Cincinnati and a weakness of theirs. Eventually opened that up a bit more in the second half. But Rand also mentioned, not hitting on some of the RPOs. And there were at least a couple of throws I can think of. One to Ketron Jackson down the middle of the field that they just could not expose and connect on that. Obviously, Blake's got to hit those. But outside of that, is this something that's sustainable? Is this a style that you can see them deploying for these next 5 games and having some success?
I think so. I mean, I think it'll be tough next week a little bit because Iowa State plays a little different.
Right.
They're a little bit more base, a little bit more sound. They take a fewer chances. They both teams tackle well. So I think, that we'll be able to incorporate just like our traditional run game a little bit more. I mean, we just kind of went all the way from one side to the other, I thought. But if you see those two D tackles, if you saw the Godfather and then the other guy called the father, because he actually is a father of 3 children. So I mean, those guys are big, thick guys, man. And you could see why we just went the other way. But I like the RPOs. And I wrote this for you guys today. I said that I actually am not discouraged by them missing RPOs because, number one, we haven't run that diet of them this season. And that means that we've really probably worked on them the last couple of weeks with extensive action. And working them in a scrimmage or in practice is so far removed from full speed in the game that I know that by next week, Blake will know, okay, this is Ketron's tempo on the RPO. This is Cameron. And he'll connect on those because Blake is accurate. Blake just doesn't miss that much. So I was at least that's the positive side.
I looked this up, and I did not know he threw 42 passes. I think last year against Oklahoma State he threw 40. I believe he also completed more passes in that game and attempted more passes in that game than he has at any time. Now, last year was a full year. 21 was a small sample size. It does show, man, he can wing it around a little bit.
Hey, I mean, Dave, I mean, to me, when you commit to Blake, there's only one reason you're going to Blake. And that's why I said, I said last time, I didn't understand why we didn't get receivers. Well, now you have a few receivers, I do feel. Now, sometimes we get in a matchup issue. We miss Hal. I hate that Hal's going to be out the rest of the season. Even Jonah, I think, is out. But I think we have enough guys on the edge. But when you go to Blake, I think you can throw the ball. I don't think you want to throw it 42 times every week. But I think you can throw the ball between 30 and 40 times every week with Blake. and he's going to give you something, especially when you have, I think, the good mix of receivers we have. You have and here's the thing, Monterey, if they hit him a couple times, he has 100 yards easy, but Blake didn't see him. But Monterey cleared so much for these guys on Saturday. I mean, you should have saw the commitment by Cincinnati to bracket Monterey, which opened up a couple digs for Josh and opened up Keytron. So I think you can throw a smoke, 30 to 35, 37 times. And with this mix of guys, we may need to be up into that 30 range anyway.
JJ, how much do you think Keytron Jackson took a step forward in just his aggressiveness and not being denied in some cases? And there was still more meat on the bone. Like I mentioned with Blake, hits him on a couple throws. He may find the end zone on one of those, but huge game, obviously, for Keytron. What do you think that means moving forward?
Well, I think a couple things. I think one, Coach Aranda mentioned, I think they like the matchup a little bit better than maybe the previous week. I think Tech had a pretty decent guy on the edge, a couple of them. And I think there's one other, I forget which game it was. They had a pretty good match. I think they like the matchup. And I think it also helps when receivers know, man, hey, we're gonna chunk it today. That you go into the game with a whole different a little pep in your step, trust me. And I think they knew coming in that, like, Keytron ended up with, I think, 11 targets, and I think Monterey had 10, or that may be vice versa. And when you know, man, you're going to get looks, dude, it changes your whole mindset going into the game. And I was happy to see Keytron make catches that I think we all thought he would make earlier in the season. He's now finding his groove a little bit.
Yeah, there was one when he kind of went up. There was a pack around him. He went up and grabbed it and came down with it. It didn't bounce loose. It's kind of like, okay, it's going to pop loose. So on the broadcast, the television broadcast, I listened to a lot of what you do, but also was on the broadcast. Somebody brought up that they said that a lot of players met with Aranda during the off week and mentioned that they did not want some fake rah-rah stuff. They didn't want that. They wanted knowledge, X's and O's, and football content. And the younger players maybe that was kind of over their head by this emotion or energy. And you hear the fan base, he's not emotional enough. He's never going to be that way. That's who he is. And apparently it made a difference a little bit, at least for 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, I think Coach Aranda, they're just telling him, hey, man, be who you are. I mean, we've heard some stuff and what they're trying to do. They're just coaches are looking for buttons to push. I mentioned this last week to you guys. And every team, even though it has similar players, is so different. The stuff it takes to get guys going. And I'm always a believer that, it's the coach's job to get these guys going. But then also in combination with that, the veterans on this team. And that's what we saw the other day, Keytron. He's a veteran. He's only been here a short time, but he's a junior, senior, whatever it is. Matt Jones had a good game. We didn't talk about it much. He had 9-10 tackles. He's a veteran. So the combination between coaches and upperclassmen players, they have to be the ones that bring those young players along. Monterey's in that group. And I was glad to see it seemed like the level of energy and effort and just aggressiveness was there from the start. Maybe the week off helped. And I'm going to tell you, they talk about Coach Aranda not being fired. If you would have saw him on those sidelines, I mean, he was showing that, hey, we need this. And I think they like him in that environment, showing gas versus maybe, trying to do a lot at different times in pregame, et cetera.
JJ, to this week, a suddenly resurgent Iowa State team that's very physical up front on both sides of the ball. This is going to be, a few weeks ago, this was one of the games, and look, they still could, but where you talked about, okay, well, this is maybe a get-right spot for Baylor, but they're going to have to come with it because it's going to be a street fight.
No, it is. And one thing that Iowa State's going to do, and I wrote this today too, is that the one thing that this team still has to learn, number one, can I put back-to-back efforts together? We had a good effort at Utah, then we came back and had not so good effort against Long Island, even though we won, and not so good effort against Texas. So they have to put good efforts back-to-back with energy present. And then the next thing is we have to learn that once you get a chance, because our team, the margin of error for this team is not there. So when they get a chance, when they get a 20-7 lead like they did on Saturday, and you get the ball back, or they get the ball, your defense is out there, you have to try to put a chokehold on a team. And if you don't, a team like Iowa State, who is sound, who is going to make tackles, who is not going to make mistakes, they're going to force you to beat them, and then they're going to watch you beat yourself. That's what they'll do. And that's what they did to Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. So it'll be tough on Saturday. But I'm going to tell you this. Coming to this season, I didn't think Iowa State would win 3-4 games. max. They're at 4-1 or 4-2, whatever they are, guys. You know what they are. Yeah. And I think from a talent perspective, maybe it's even. I don't know. I'm not analyzing rosters yet. I don't think it's a big gap where Iowa State is like, 3 levels. They have 3 levels more better talent than we have. But I think right now they're more confident. And on Saturday, I'm hoping our guys build on what they had this past Saturday.
JJ, what was your Queen City and Nippert Stadium experience like?
Hey, it was nice, man. I'm telling you, the stadium was a little smaller than I expected. I mean, I don't know what I expected. It was a little smaller, but I liked where it was. It held sound pretty good. I like going to the Queen City. That's the first time I've been to Cincinnati itself. And the only thing I hate is I was trying to get across the street. We went to someplace, and I was trying to get across the street to get some Reds gear, man. These jokers closing at like 5:30. I'm trying to say, what's up with that?
I didn't know
it's
you were
like Salt Lake City.
I didn't know you were a Reds fan, JJ.
Hey, man, I grew up in Arlington. I'm a Rangers fan, but the one thing that I did when it was the old Big 12, like we would go places like it was kind of new for me because I didn't play these. Like we went to Nebraska, I got a sweater. We went to different places. I always got a sweater or something just to have. I got my boys some shirts or something just to say, hey man, it's me. I probably won't go here very often, so that's all I want. I'm just trying to grab some Reds gear.
So, being a Rangers fan, you a little excited about Game 7 tonight after that? How that finished Friday and then also last night?
Hey, Dave, I'm very excited. You know what I'm saying? I was hoping that Garcia would like dance around the sideline, around the base that last time when he got that. So the guys would hit him and get us a free base runner here early in this game, right? I mean, that's what I was hoping, but no, man, I grew up. I'm not a huge baseball fan. I'll be honest. I do watch the World Series pretty much every year, but I'm a Rangers fan because I grew up literally a mile and a half from the stadium. I used to go to the boys' club. Grew up in the boys' club. Then it's now the Boys and Girls Club. We used to always go to Arlington Stadium. We got free tickets. So I knew all the old guys. So it's good to see them back, at least with an opportunity.
JJ, thank you, man. Great to have you on the show when we do. Appreciate your time. And again, his column, it is right up every Monday in Sic'Em365.com in the premium section. JJ, we appreciate it. That's JJ Joe with us. I think it may even go up